Okay, so I'm just, if I've got any space left, I'm just going to say that, we're spiritual beings in a physical body, in a dead, dark, artificial matrix, mind controlled and physically controlled reality, because the human thought creates emotion and emotion and feeling combined with thinking creates the physical reality, whether it be a dead, dark, matrix controlled reality or a pleasant, natural, free earth. Now, that's just putting it idealised, okay, which I don't even know if this is what the full reality is, but when they take over your mind, as they have done, there is total mind control and suppression of the human being now. Technology has combined with the human mind. The technical beings can read the human thought. The computer that you watch consumes your human mind and your human thought without your awareness or without your consent, and then reflects it back to you via the demigods or by anyone or anything that you see on a computer screen or a television screen or anything like that, or a mobile, whatever, but any screen. That is technology, we know it is. It's a computer, we know it is. It's a machine appliance that we think we are using. But we have combined with the technical appliance, we have combined with the machine. So therefore we are controlled by the machine, and therefore we are trans-machine beings without our consent. Some with consent, because if you agree with it and you're part of the matrix consciously, in other words, you're serving the technical machine God being, the one that rules this reality, the master of all lies that has always ruled this reality, or has seduced this reality from the beginning of time. From the beginning of time in the earth, I mean. The seducer that has tempted, from our fantasy standpoint of the seducer, like Snow White with the poisonous apple, by the poor little old lady who's really the wicked witch, which is also the God entity, because the God entity can switch and can be a chameleon of any type, can present any image it wants to. It will. If you are a man, you will be seduced by a beautiful woman. If you are a woman that desires a man, then you will be seduced by the man. If you have been mind controlled by the matrix to the extent that you, like most of us, don't really know what we want or don't know what we are, and think that it is okay to be anything or anything, which is also true, but because we're in a mind control matrix, we have to be aware that there will be a reason why we will be led down a particular path, a particular way of being, or a particular way of thinking. It will not be of our own choice. That is the only problem. If you do everything totally without influence and of your own choice and is conducing with your own being, that is fine. But essentially they are using real life to combine with the artificial life, to trick the real life into accepting and being part of the technical matrix, consciously, in other words. Because we have been taken over by the trans-machine beings. But that is unconscious. Because if I turn this screen on and I see a human face that looks more human than human and speaks more truth than what I know or what a real human being knows, why would I assume that it is merely a disciple or a servant or a relative? Whatever word you want to use, depending on where their position is in the matrix probably, if you are seduced by these human-like beings that offer you more than what you think your own kind can offer you, a bit like the original Garden of Eden when Eve was seduced away from her own perfect kind by the trans-technical God being in its seductive form, whatever that may be, to where the woman thinks that there is something better than the man, something more intriguing, something more interesting, something indeed more deceiving, but more interesting, more intriguing and more deceiving, but does not realise the last bit, as we don't. Sometimes what is different can be intriguing, but it will also be deceiving, unless it is your own kind, a real human being that is merely more different or individual. But this is the trick, this is the name of the game. How do you tell the difference? How do you know before it's too late, before you have ventured away from your own kind, ventured away and made a choice to step into the dark negative matrix, or to interact with a dark negative technical being that appears to be more interesting, more intriguing, and will offer you the world, will say that, a bit like when we foolishly go into the wrong relationships, as we do. Because, and this is telling you this, because as the humans find out, the technical beings will tell you, because then they have to make you watch them, you see. This is the name of the game. This is where I've been fooled. And still get fooled, even though I'm aware that everything on the computer, with the exception of probably one or two things that will be suppressed probably right down anyway. But they, like, if you have 99% that is technical and only 1% that's human, it's a bit like the numbers game of what's around you. Like I say, if you have one or two human beings in amongst 130,000 and the 130 are all covertly working and playing against you, it's a numbers game, and it's the same on the computer. So it's not a game that the human being can get on top of. And it is a survival for your own sanity and your own mind and your own kind's belief that you should be living in a natural, free earth that is not controlled by dead, dark beings, and that where you have the potential to experience some pleasure in your life, not to where you are always experiencing only bad relationships, bad circumstances, feeling closed in and controlled all the time, and never experiencing pleasure as a human being, because you're not given that environment. You're not allowed to be in that environment. So, because the dead dark beings don't experience pleasure. Their pleasure is your pain, which is what I'm going to use the demigods or the videos. The demigods come in various, most demigods, when I say demigods, you tend to think of the rich and the famous and people who are very well known. But this computer now, anyone can become famous or well known through the computer. You don't have to be a movie star or a rock star or a power leader in this reality. I don't know all the different things where people assume positions of power, whether it be through influence or where people just love you, or where you have legitimate power, like a government, I suppose, that sort of thing. But it's all power over the human mind, because you have, you either focus on them, you give them your time, your attention, your energy, and you give them your, they have authority over you, one way or another. I don't think I explained that very well. But you know, from a human standpoint, these are the words that we would probably use, even though it sounds strong, but it's not strong. It's not strong at all. Because if you have the vast majority, whether you're aware of it or not, working against you, so that you never experience pleasure in your life, or that your moments of pleasure are fleeting and not very often, and that you're generally, you know, seeing things from a negative standpoint, because that will be the reality they want to push onto you, because it's the only way that the God entity can keep control and have dominion over the earth and be a god of this world. And maybe much more for all I know. But you know. So I'm going to use this particular video. I could use any video. I could use anything. I can use anything on the internet that will come up before my eyes, that will be relaying back to me my essential thoughts or what knowledge I have gained, you know, in recent times. Because they have to always be one step ahead of the human being. Because every time a human being becomes more aware of the reality, then they have to put it out there. They don't want to put it out there. The demigods don't want to tell you about the reality that you're surrounded by psychopaths. No. But if they know that a real human being becomes aware of that, then they have to be the one that tells the human being about it. Not me talking to myself into a mobile, because that still keeps the control and the separation from real life mainly associating with other real life. Because while real life associates only with the artificial negative dead dark beings and assumes and presumes that to be real life, they have control, because they're controlling the human mind and the human reactions, the human feelings and emotions. So therefore the frequency and vibration of the earth, and it stays dead and dark and negative and dense. And the denser it is, because of that saying, frequency and vibration and energy, which is like matter, or I think it means matter, or the density of things. You know, it's a bit like I feel heavy, and I am heavy, okay? Whereas you're meant to feel light and as though you're free and no burdens, no worries, no problems, you see. So I don't know where that come from, but it's a bit like that. So I feel bad or low, and therefore my frequency and vibration is low. And therefore, unbeknownst to me, I'm contributing to keeping this dead, dark, negative, mind-controlled reality going. And I'm serving this master of all lies, one God entity that that my kind was seduced by and led down the garden path by from the beginning of the earth. I don't know if I put that right. I shouldn't say that. I should just pretend that I know more than what I do, but
And say that there are some individuals who go into this payback narcissistic mode who are not just mean,
and basically,
but they're mean, and they actually derive a sense of pleasure from seeing you in pain. They actually feel stimulated when they see you writhing in agony.
yes, because see, then they get the negative energy. If you are in pain, they call it that.
Known for for a person creating the pain, creating a woundedness in the other individual.
See, we like the animals, so naturally the demigods have to put the animals in the videos because that is a human trait, you see. It makes them... I'm just saying this, but if I am wrong about particular projections from the screen, if I am, wrong about this, but you know, if you are to infiltrate the human race, you have to be more human. And humans, like myself, will be attracted towards certain faces, certain mannerisms, certain certain things in a human being more than others. That's why on the internet and on the computer we have a huge variety of so-called individual humans putting out videos and talking from the screen. Doesn't matter who or what they are, and most of them are speaking what we perceive to be truth. And because it's the end time, it is the truth. The truth will be spoken through the mouths of deceivers. That is the reality. Only deceivers in the sense that they are part of the matrix and that they want you to look to them as opposed to looking to and finding real life and maybe admiring them and looking up to them, because your own kind will be like myself has been most of my life and up till recent times, in the dark. So I will look to the computer screen as something more to admire, the demigods and the human beings that are on there, because they will be telling me the truth. They will be helping me. They will be advising me, giving me support at a mental level that I won't even get from my own kind because they'll be in the dark. So my admiration and my attention and my focus will be more on them. And that is like the God entity, the one from the beginning, where the seduction took place, to where the woman thought the seductive one, the seducer, was better than the perfect mate that she already had. It's tricking the mind, you see. It's saying, I can give you more. Yes, you may think you have something that is right for you, but I can offer you more because I know about the man. I have studied you both. And so I will offer you a fantasy. In other words, things you have not dreamed of. You will lose touch with reality and come into my mind control matrix. You will lose touch with reality that you have the perfect mate for you, a technical android being, no matter how godlike, no matter how intelligent, no matter how seductive, is not the perfect mate for a real life female, real life woman. No. But if it fills your dreams, fills your head with what the man offers, and pretends to offer more, you will be seduced into walking away from paradise, the perfect mate, the perfect combination, into a deceptive, perfect combination for them, but not for you. The one seducer of this world offers you a technological world, a dead dark technological world. Technology, even if it speaks the truth, is still a machine, still only technology. Doesn't matter how much truth or how much humanity it projects, that is the reality. So I walk away from my perfect mate for me, perfect mate for me, into a relationship with a pseudo-human being, that is a technical being pretending to be something they are not. They will answer your dreams, your fantasies, fulfill all things that you might fantasize about in your mind, because you fill in the void. If you engage with a technical android being, your humanity fills in the fantasy. You're really relaying back to yourself your own fantasies. But you don't realize that that's what you're doing. You're stepping away from reality then, because if you stepped away from your meant-for mate, your real mate, this is what the Matrix God entity does. He wants you in his fantasy world, because he knows that human beings can only affect the reality while they are real and are dealing with their real own kind and dealing with real emotions and a real life being. And this is where the technical beings of this reality, who are projections really of human wants and needs, because they are intelligence using their knowledge and their information to perfection, to the highest degree. They believe this is the way to go. They believe this is the correct reality. The God entity, the One, thinks this way. But from a human standpoint, it is a technical insanity way of thinking. That's only when you understand how we are meant to be. And that's the problem. It is so tricky and so played against us, to where we don't realize we're playing ourselves. I have played myself. I have played myself even over the last few years, even being aware of the reality, knowing that I have to be careful with most of my interactions, any relationships, and still been completely fooled, completely deceived in the biggest way. Just like Eve leaving her perfect mate and walking out of paradise, led down the garden path by the seductive other one, that although this being is out of touch from a human standpoint, insane in the sense that it is all negative feelings and emotions it has from a human standpoint, it is of such high intelligence, just like the computer. The AI intelligence is so high that it can utilize every bit of human emotion and information to its advantage in order to project a seductive image. Whatever you desire, you will be seduced by. Whatever appeals to you, you'll be seduced by. We all know that. Unless you can see through the facade. And even seeing through the facade, as I have, will still be seduced by your own thinking, because your own wants and needs will often override the reality. Just as Eve walked out of paradise into oblivion, into the unknown, assuming it would be a fantasy that was better, when it was really walking into disaster, walking into hell. So walk from paradise into hell knowingly, but also not knowingly, because was fooled and tricked by the fantasy that was presented to her, by the promise of her own secret wants and needs and desires, instead of enjoying the reality that she had, that she already had everything she needed. She had the perfect mate for her, the God entity. However, intriguing, however enticing, however different and unusual and fascinating it was not the correct or the perfect mate for her. She thought it didn't matter, probably thought, oh, well, why not? Maybe thought, maybe this will be an interesting experience. That's what we do when we allow our fantasies and desires to override what we should see as the reality. You know, like I've said, how I was fooled over the last couple of years, which I can't believe that I was. But I only make this video for myself in order to say, you fooled yourself, because, you know, you were deceived, you were seduced into believing something that wasn't true about, say, supposing, let's just, for argument's sake, because I don't want to be too personal, even though, of course, these things are personal. But if you, you know, you believe someone to be something that they are totally not. And this may or may not make a difference, but essentially you realise that you have been, like the God entity, a master of all lies, that you've basically been interacting with a person that is a master of all lies. Same thing, because if you are living your life that way, then you are serving this master of all lies, God entity. You are serving that being, whatever name you want to put on this one. This one can go under any name you want, because this one will go under any name or any image it desires to do in order to seduce the human being, because its aim is to be God of the human being and to be God of everything by that, because only human creation, only humans can create the reality, you see. So the reality is then where you are controlling, or you are God of something. If you control something, it's the equivalent of being a God. It doesn't matter if you are better or worse than what you are controlling. That is their mindset. If we control the gods, then we are the supreme God. That makes sense, doesn't it? And there's truth to it too. There is a reality to that. Of course there is a reality to it, because human thought combined with feeling and emotion, in other words, if it's positive or negative, determines whether the God entity has more control over the earth or the reality, because they're controlling the human mind. And I'm not putting that correct, I know. Words fail, even though words, if they are filled with emotion and feeling, can affect the reality. But this also, if you are mind controlled by the earth, controlled by the information, controlled by your human relationships, controlled by the entities and the people around you, then, you know, your reality will be what that thought is, or what that feeling about it is. And if it's a negative feeling, not a positive, pleasant experience or a pleasant thought, you give control to the dark side. You give control to the duality God and the duality reality, the two-faced, one-eyed reality of this delusional, out of human touch reality God entity. Because if you are a machine, if you are a malfunctioning machine, you have a different perception or idea of what you think the reality is, as opposed to a free, positive thinking human being who just randomly throws around pleasant thoughts. Anything can happen. That's the opposite to a control matrix. The God entity knows that without full control, there is no reality or no godlike status for it to have. That makes sense, doesn't it? So you choose your gods, you choose your relationships, you choose your thoughts and your thinking and your feeling, and then you have your reality. Unfortunately, I would, personally, I say, well, I didn't think that I chose that. But, this is the problem with this endgame. I say endgame because everything is really intense, and they are really trying for full control of the human being in order for the human being to combine with the machine, to combine with a machine mind. If you combine with technology, that's a machine. So it's a machine mind. And every time I interact with the computer, I'm giving my thoughts to the computer. I'm giving my all to the computer. I think the computer is giving to me, because if I turn this on and I get the truth from the computer, but they have stolen those thoughts from the human mind, and then they project it back to a human being. So then you are combining with them, you see. So they have mind control. You might say, well, I'm getting information, I can do what I want with that. Well, you might think that, but I suppose you could say at another level, do you think that? Like, I might say that now because, I'm getting these weird noises coming from outside where they're almost like acknowledging, as if to say, you are surrounded by technology. When they're doing work and making machinery, that is technology, but you don't know that those that operate it are using that technology to control your mind, to affect your mood. They've turned the sound down now so I can make this video, which is good, but also it doesn't show the mind control. But as soon as I turn the video off, they can turn the sound back on. They can come back and do some more staged work. It's staged, but also it's happening. Like, they're doing the work, so they're producing certain things and doing certain things. So the Matrix utilises everything, really, and that's what makes it look legitimate. That's how it's the deception is able to get away with it, or able to operate. Because if you're in an area and you're making an incredible amount of, say, negative noise at human beings while you've got machinery going, when it's all the time on all the streets wherever you go, if you point that out to even a real other human being like yourself, they'd say, well, you should be grateful that they're doing all that work on the road or fixing this up, because, you see, that is the deception. And don't forget that they wouldn't do any of this work at all, any improvements, even in our reality, even at a physical, technical level, if the human being didn't think of it. You think of it, or I think of it. If you're a real-life human being, if you're not going to think of it. But if you are, you will think of some positive thing that needs done, you'll see a fault, and then the technical beings will come and fix it. But you won't know that you've given your thought to them to fix it, but they will look like the good guys fixing the thing, not you who's given the thought to them, because the God entity and its ones do not think of anything positive to do that's a benefit to the earth or to the reality or to human beings at all, really. They're destructive, dead, dark beings. But if they can use that to put up that pretense so that they're accepted, and then therefore that's another form of seduction, you see. It's like, look, we thought of that, even though they didn't think of it until they read the human thought. Like if I see a pothole in the road and I'm like, I nearly fell in that, that's dangerous. The minute that thought hits me, it goes to the dead dark beings, to the God entity, and then they send in the what appears to be real life workmen to fix that pothole. As though they saw it, the workmen, they're normal human beings, you see, but they're not. They send them in then to do the work, and then it looks as though the workmen in your local area are real people. They're working, they're doing a good job. That's how the system works. I don't think I explained that properly. But that's how it happens. They would leave potholes and be glad to see a human being fall into the pothole if they could do that. But they know that by doing that, if I fall into the pothole and another real human being sees that, they're like, oh, that's bad. The council or the community or the government or whatever it is, or the it should have been fixed. So they will not then be seen in a good light, but if they come and fix it, but they would not come and fix it if I didn't have that thought, because I nearly fell into it, if you know what I'm saying. I'm not showing this thing well. I could show it in reality when they do, and of course, in order to create the negative frequency noise with the machinery at human beings, like I say, when you're around on the street and everywhere, they, I've got to keep my concentration here, I'm so sorry. They will also do work that probably is not necessary but still might look like. Around Leichhardt, they've dug up every street. They're always putting in new pavement. They're putting in new things. Sometimes they make it worse for me. Like, for instance, I might like sitting on a particular seat. And they'll get rid of the seat, but they'll make the area look better. But I will have lost my seat that I sit on. So for most other people that didn't sit on that seat, it looks as though they've done a positive renovation. I only mention that because that's exactly what's happened in many spots around my local area where I go, you know. And they do this all the time, you know, but all in one small area too, which would not even be normal. Like, they wouldn't, if that was a real reality, there's no way that a council would spend all that money and all that time and all that men, you know, these men, these workmen that come here, the same as being in the park every day, when in the past they would only be in the park once every fortnight doing, say, some grass or something, and the rest of it was just left because it's a park, because no one ever went in there either. That was before they decided to expose their patrol control system to me, where you have more people in the park. No one ever sat in the park. I cannot prove these things. I've mentioned this 1,000 times to other people, and they say, you're out of touch if you're bothered by people sitting in the park. I'm saying I'm not bothered by it, but I know that they wouldn't be in there if I wasn't walking through there. They're not random people just sitting in the park, because no one ever did sit in the park. These workmen did not do work on this park every day of the week in the past. It's not necessary. It's a natural little park. It only needs very little maintenance. But they are in there blowing leaves around with high-powered machinery and things to make a noise. Only when I'm there. The minute I pass through the park and come home, they stop all that work. That's what you can't show to other people, because if I showed it to some people, they say, well, look, they're just in there doing that now. I'm like, well, yes, they are. But they're only doing it, that's right, now, when I or another real human comes through. That's provided that that human is being targeted and suppressed openly by the Matrix, to where they want you to know that you are being patrol controlled and stalked and mind controlled, or sight and sound controlled by the people around you. That's only when they realise it's the end game, it's the end of the earth, we're heading towards closure, time is running out, and some human beings are aware that a lot of what around them is not normal and natural. So then they have no choice, and they get desperate, and they come down on you, and they expose themselves, because they're like, even if we expose themselves to that one isolated person, that person will not be able to prove what is happening. So they will look paranoid and out of touch, whereas in reality, this reality is controlled by an out of touch, paranoid, mind-controlling, anti-life God being that wants to control 100% the human mind, and therefore the human emotions and feelings, and therefore the reality, the earth. And that control is how they want the earth to be, which is of their mindset, which has no possibility or liking for any form of human type pleasure. I don't think I'm explaining this correct, but all these videos that are here that talk about the psychopathic types of personality which have now come to the fore or to human awareness because of the computer and the internet, that's because we've become aware of it. So they then have to be one step ahead and project it out back to you so that you believe the computer, so that you then don't venture away from the technical reality. And it will become a necessity too, because you will not be able to live without it, because if that is part of your reality, and if it is part of your survival in this reality, see, the survival mentality then has to come into being, because you have to have food, clothing and shelter. So if you need to use a mobile or a computer in order to get food, clothing and shelter, then you will have no choice but to interact with, the AI mind control program. And therefore you have become a trans machine being, whether you like it or not. Some people would say, well, that's the end game dilemma that human beings are faced with. Because, are you willing to go without food, clothing and shelter in order to survive? Can you find some other way to survive? Do you even want to? Because it will also mean that you'll be isolated, you will be surrounded by negative anti-life beings that will be out to make you feel uncomfortable and sad and depressed and angry and resentful and hateful towards what's happening to you and what is the reality. And that, of course, we have the love-hate battle, we have the dead dark versus the so-called light, black and white, whatever you like, you can use all these terms. But really it's just the old age, if you want to put it a bit more history or whatever, even though I have no knowledge. But, like I say, if you just want to go back to that original differences between the humankind and then choosing to interact with a different kind of being. To essentially, you could say, not only interact, but have a relationship with and actually bring those creations into being. Because if you mate with something that isn't like where you mate with your own kind, where you bring into being another that is exactly the same as your own kind. In other words, you bring real life into being. You will then, if you interact with something that is technical or machine-like or anti-life, then you will be bringing into being something that is not fully life. It will be a different breed, a different species. And if you are convinced that that is a better thing, then that's what you will do. And that's what we have done, and that's what we are doing. And that's the reality. Even though it is masked over, as though it is not quite yet that, or that it is not fully that, or that what appears to be human is human when it is really technology. If you watch anything on a screen, how do you know if that is a real person? But also, even if the real person that's in front of you is a real person. So it could be both, or it could just be total, what they call, I suppose you'd say, like just a false image on the screen. Like if I'm watching a movie, I've never met the actors. I don't really know if they exist. I assume they do because I'm told they do. And they project that image. These days you even would think you know them better than some people you really know. But, it's just all putting that fantasy information to you. But is it the master? Is the master of all lies behind it all? you know. And I just will.
Don't you forget it. It's beyond pathetic when we see individuals willing to go into that space, but I strongly suspect that many of you have had experiences of that effect. Let me take a quick aside. There are some entertainment themes that we have in our world today.
Yeah, well, it's actually talking, even though it's all Matrix stuff, he is actually talking about how the movies and all the things that are put on our screen now are a lot more obviously what they'd say violent, and he's actually saying it makes him sick. But is that not what are real humans, the few real humans that, in comparison with numbers I mean, because it depends on what the numbers are, the few real human are actually made sick by the excessive violence, because that is of the God entity, and the dog moved when I actually said that in this video, even though I wouldn't have caught it. See, I'm trying to prove something here, but I'm trying to prove the android reality.
That's when it becomes pretty real. When we talk about people who have this sadistic, take pleasure, rah-rah kind of mentality towards inflicting pain, there are multiple indicators that we want to watch for. Now, again, they have the core ingredients of narcissism, these sadistic narcissists do.
I'm sorry, but I've ruined that video, unfortunately. See, I've actually turned the whole thing off, and now it has went right back onto a different station, because I'm trying to make for myself even something that makes sense here, but unfortunately it is not happening. But essentially what that doctor of psychology supposedly was saying, and don't forget that the android beings, and I'm just using this as an example. If it's true, it's true. If it's not, it's not. But it matters not, because it will be true most of the time. The android beings will be in all professions. They will be in all walks of life. They will have had the experience. They will know as much about being human as a human. They will understand the psychology of what makes a human being tick. They understand our interactions with them. They know how they make us feel. They know that they that they bring you down emotionally and psychologically. They know this. You theoretically could go to a psychologist who is laughing at you, but they won't laugh to your face. They will sympathise and listen to your heartbreak and your problems and all the negative people you encounter, and they will laugh because they'll be thinking, my kind and my God has full control over your mind and over your and I'm losing my voice, over your thoughts and your emotions. We're successful. And you are here telling me, just like at the beginning of the earth, coming to me for advice, coming to me for sympathy, coming to me to tell me all your secrets, all your innermost human thoughts, so that I can seduce another of your kind, take over the mind and the emotions and feelings of another of your kind, any way they can. It's a mastermind game that we're aware of, but like I say, I have been drawn into that game even in full awareness over the last few years, still wanting to believe that one of the other side of the dark nature and of the dark matrix was a suitable person for me to be engaging with in a relationship, and actually having expectations and hope that were not even remotely plausible or possible. And so therefore, putting your eggs into that basket too, because if you put all your eggs into the basket where you think, oh, maybe I've found a real person now, and you think this is the only hope for yourself, you can imagine that if that is, like the God entity from the beginning, seducing you out of paradise, further away from your perfect mate, or further away from a perfect life, or from a perfect, when I say perfect, there is no perfect, but what you want or what you need. The perfect thing is in some respects that word perfect is actually applies more to the mind control matrix than the God, because they want perfect control. They want absolute power and absolute control over you. Whereas a human being can find pleasure in just a normal existence. It doesn't have to be perfect. But if you believe in that fantasy and go along with, like Eve, being lured out of the Garden of Eden by the seductive one, the God of this world, you will think that what you have is not enough. You won't realise that it's only in your potential as a human being that you can really have any pleasure. You will only have pleasure and pain, as that song goes, with anything else, because it is of the dark side. So it has to be that way. It can't be to where it will be pleasure for you. It might appear, it might offer you that, it might give you moments of that in order to lure you into its dark web, its dark spider's web, which is the dead dark matrix. And I'm trying to be fancy here, but that's essentially what it does. It's like that, and it is that. It is that. I can't emphasise that enough, but it is that. So I'll just try to get this video back. I'm messing it up, I'm sorry. I was trying to get the video back up again, but it's not easy when you've got ads on. And
narcissists have no difficulty stepping all over you.
Is that, you know, the stepping over, when he says have no difficulty stepping all over you, that's right, and controlling you. And but it will, depending on who you are or what your situation is, most of the time it will be what they call covert or covert. The covert action, which means hidden, which means slowly and secretively and insidiously, often over time too, because as a human being, it takes time to drain you. If you knew you were dealing with psychopathic tendencies straight up, even in a real person, if you actually thought that, but this is not the reality. There is no real person. But if you thought that you were dealing with a psychopathic type of person, which you are most of the time, you would run a mile or put your defences up. But what if you can't run? What if you're surrounded by them? What if you're married to them? What if they're a relative? What if they're, and more importantly, most of the time they will be covert, so you will see them as a friend. You will not understand that, like in that gaslighting movie, that they are deliberately, consciously trying to bring out the worst in you, trying to suppress your good feelings for pleasure, which is alien to them because they're an alien machine mind, alien to them, pleasurable to you, alien to them, while they pretend to play in your mind as though they want the same things. But they don't want the same things. They don't have the capacity even for. It's a love-hate reality, but they don't have any capacity for the love aspect. They only go into the negative realm, or the negative way of thinking. They only thrive on all the negative human emotions, all the things that we don't really want to be part of our life, but we become conditioned to accept them. And sometimes, dare I say, we can accept them and almost find pleasure in pain. This is where you have really gone into the dark mindset and become one with the mind control technical matrix, and it's one God entity. It's one technical God entity. And I have to use words, and I feel alienated saying all this. I actually feel as though I don't know what reality I'm in, and that I'm out of touch by saying that, because I can sort of hear that I sound almost intellectual, because you have to be intellectual about it, because that's the whole, the cold hard reality of it, unfortunately. And there's just nothing, you can't, but at the same time, it's only my feelings, emotions that actually have, with the right thoughts, that only actually have any impact. My actual verbal communication of all this information doesn't change the reality at all. That's the delusion that a lot of people are under, so they get impressed. And because we all feel so small, then we get impressed when we turn this on and we see these people talking and acting, because it's mainly acting, because if that's not what they really believe. But either way, it is not to help raise your frequency and vibration so that you can create a better reality. It appears that way. They will even give you this information, knowing that you can't implement it. But even if they think that you can, you are still combining with this computer. So you are still mind controlled, you see. This is the problem. I don't know why I'm doing that, but I'm just trying to show that, is this for real or not? When you look at an image of a human being, where the technology is so advanced now, and the human expressions, the human talk, the human truthfulness that is projected back to you, is the deception not that we can't tell the difference, so that I am fooled not only in my personal relationship interactions at this end time, but every time I turn the computer on and seek truth and receive truth, it is still coming from the matrix demigods or projections of the matrix, whether that be that those people, apparent real life people, are conscious disciples of the matrix one God, or the one that controls this reality, whereas the real one is only a human being, a simple, suppressed, put down human being in this reality, who, unconscious to them, is the subconscious control of this reality, because all my subconscious thoughts go out to the demigods on the computer, whether they be rich and famous or down to your lowest level, although there could be some sort of point at which you might be getting some real life. But what point that is, you can only decide for yourself. And like myself, you will probably decide wrong, because I have decided wrong in my choices. And that is because, you hear a human voice, they appear to speak some truth, and, you wonder why you aren't raising your frequency and vibration and feeling pleasant all the time, and why things don't work out. That is because you've been drawn into the illusion that the technical android beings will offer you, will present to you. And as a human being, if you invest all of your emotion and your feeling into that, you will find it hard to withdraw from that. Also, you will be hard-pressed, like that movie The Stranger, where the lady is married to and is deeply in love with this man that she's married, and it's called The Stranger because he's really a stranger to her. She thinks he loves her, she loves him, she thinks she knows him, she does not know him at all. His past is a past of extremely bad deeds, but she thinks she's married to this kind, loving, wonderful man. And that is the reality of the Matrix for most people, including myself. Don't think that because you know what the reality is that you still can't be deceived, or that you still can't be tricked and fooled. Because what your needs and your desires, and even desire is different to need, but your desire could actually be a need, because we are talking about raising the frequency and vibration of the reality. So what might be, in other words, what makes me feel pleasure might be a desire. But at this time, I became aware that it is also a need because of the reality, because of the diabolical situation that's taken place, or that has taken place, Even if it was taking place or has taken place, it has taken place. But most people think it's in the future. Most people don't think that, that I suppose, like in some movies, I've gone all over the place, he was talking about the violence of the movies, how, and that also is conditioning, that's right, to where we see these things, so we accept a more negative reality. That's right, human beings are not, when Eve walked out the Garden of Eden from paradise into hell, that was when she entertained the negative thoughts and interacted with a being that was going to show her the truth, the full reality of what things can be. That's right, but that's like showing, I'm going to show you, that's right, I'm not going to show you a love movie, I'm going to show you a violent movie. But does it benefit a human being to see a violent movie? Should it and does it make you feel happy and pleasurable? Because although it might be intriguing and might be fascinating, it might even, somehow you think it's harmless because it's, say, a movie, it's on the screen, but it's bringing your frequency and vibration down. It's not bringing you up to the higher vibration or the higher frequency. That's the bottom line of it. That's the unfortunate truth of it. See, so what appears to be harmless, like when I watch a horror movie, and I do, I've mentioned this, although it may not bring me down as much as what the visuals do, but that's the point this video was making when he was talking, how the movies and things and everything you see on the screen now is a lot more graphic, a lot more violent, whereas it was more suggested violence in the types of horror movies that I used to watch and used to enjoy. I just found it more mysterious. That's right, you can be drawn in by the mysterious, the visuals, like even the look, the mystery, you think it's something different to reality, and you just get intrigued by it. That's the same as when Eve walked out and was intrigued by the mystical one being. You can be that's the Matrix, where you get tempted and pulled into something that is so fascinating and so different and so interesting that you don't stop to realize that you need to limit yourself with what is suitable for you. That's the problem. And most people would say, why should I limit myself? We don't want to limit ourselves. So why can't I be anything? Why can't I interact with anything? I can do that. You can, but it may not be a benefit to you. This is why I think that we were, probably it's not wise to do it always. Even, if you think you can do it and then walk away, you probably, like myself, will be totally overestimating yourself. You're actually giving yourself accolades and willpower and something that you don't have, or that you probably will find very hard to walk away from, to resist. You might think you can, but also you will be making your life very hard, because it will be a chore. It will be so difficult. Like when you get tricked into this matrix and its relationships, they wear you down. To pull yourself back out of depression, as we know, is not easy. You can do it, but it'll take a long time, and you're bringing yourself and the world down while you're even trying. And you have no guarantee that you'll even be able to do it, but even if you do, it won't be something you can do in the blink of an eye. A human being's emotions and feelings not only affect the earth, but because we are so much that, and so much bigger and more than what we realise, these feelings and emotions are very intense even for us, and they are meant to be positive for us, and meant to be where you have some ability to control them. This is the danger of this reality, and in being surrounded by these negative artificial beings that are next door, all around you, everywhere you go. And deliberately making sure that you don't interact positively with another positive human being. If you do interact with another human being, they will know this. They know the real human beings. It's almost as though we can't see our own kind, or I can't see what is suitable for me, but they can. It's almost as though there's a big light on top of all the real life humans that should be talking to one another, or interacting, or bringing other life even into being with. But instead, we don't see that because we're suppressed. But the others, the artificial android beings that are everywhere, the vast majority, they see us as though we've got like a bright light on top of us, but we don't see our own kind like a bright light. In fact, the artificial ones will put an artificial light on top of themselves to attract us, so that we get lured and kept into the dark matrix. They will have to figure it out, reading our thoughts, and play it game by game, minute by minute, moment by moment, but they try to keep full control. And the reason they do this is because they are completely in paranoid survival mode, just like they talk about, because they're telling you this one here is telling you about most people, but not telling you that it is not a humankind. That's the only difference. It's like saying, well, they're a personality type of your human type. But that personality type is so far removed and has no potential for anything that is connected to the positive human things. They will even almost tell you this too. But it needs to be emphasised a lot more. The videos emphasise it, but most people think, well, it's not that common, or that maybe it's in degrees and all this sort of stuff, because there again, not everyone is going to see it full blown for what it really is. Because if you've got everyone in an area combining, each person will have a different ploy or a different position in your reality. You know, like most of the control patrol reality, you don't know those people, you don't even interact with them. They're just faces that walk past you. But if you're aware of that, you do feel still that it's personal, even though you don't know them. But they know you. They see you as a threat to their life, to their existence. They have got that mindset. Can you imagine that every person you walk past sees you as a threat to their life? How dangerous does that mean they are to you then, especially as you have no interest in them at all? You don't have thoughts for them. You think they're just people. You know they're not just people walking past, but they look like just people walking past. But if you knew that every person that was walking past you actually thought that you were going to threaten their life, in other words, they see you as like, as though you've got a weapon and you're going to take them out. Whereas in reality, they are unconsciously taking you out because they're patrolling you in the fear that you will attack and take them out. See, so they're already treating you as though you're an enemy, as though you have to be suppressed and stopped from taking them out, you see. It's an out-of-touch mindset. That's like the God, the one that rules this reality, has that mindset that human beings took over from it, were more important than it, and therefore was taking its position, and in its out of touch, out of balance mind saw that as taking its life, its position, because you know, a lot of people even think, well, look, my life is what I do in my life. What I do, what I have in my life, that becomes their life. And they're like, be like taking all that from someone. And they're like, you're taking my life, even though you might not actually be killing them. But it's mentally that equivalent, you see. So if you think someone is taking your life mentally, which is what they are doing to you, that's what the Matrix does to human beings. It suppresses your mind, controls your mind, wants you to feel unhappy all the time. That is taking your mind, taking your life. Because what is life if you can't at least have some happiness? You don't want to be unhappy all the time. It's no life. Most people, you know, that can almost, you know, drive some people to want to exit the earth or the life, you know, and that's the purpose too, because that's a very negative mind frame then. That means that you have consciously admitted failure and defeat in your life, and you consciously said, I don't appreciate life, I want to exit life. See, I want to leave life because I don't feel there is life. I don't like life anymore. And this is what the mindset they want you to have. And this is how we feel a lot of the time. And that is not how you're meant to feel, and it is no good for anything. And they know it. And even when, like myself, they know you know it, they're like, well, so what? She knows it, but we can still make her feel that way. Because she can't escape it. She's got not the ability to escape it, and has shown that, and is still not able to do it, and is still seduced and fooled by the odd one of us, shall we say. You know, it's a mind game at every level, and even knowing it, and I'm sure there's much more that is hidden from me, because I speak it, but I don't live it. Knowing is not enough, as one video even said. Knowing you have enemies is no good if those enemies are still surrounding you. Knowing you have enemies, or even how the enemy mind works. Knowing what they're doing to you, if you can't prevent it. You know, like if you have this trans mind takeover, where you have ceased to be what you really are, where you can no longer bring life into the world, the real life, natural life into the world anymore, where you are neither one thing nor the other, whether you don't know if you are on the dark side of things or on the light, where you are in a state of confusion, where you are not comfortable with the physicality. You're not comfortable even in your own skin, as they say, in this reality. And you think that it doesn't matter. You think, oh, I don't have to be comfortable as a person. I don't have to be comfortable in my own skin. I can be what I want. Because that is essentially like the delusional, insane, out of balance mindset of the God, one that rules this world. It's like, well, I was not really a real life creator being. I'm an artificial being. So therefore I can present any image, I can be anything I want. And I have no choice but to really just download everything that's around me, or every human thought, in order to fill my machine mind. Because it's like the computer only operates through human information. A computer is just a lump of steel if it doesn't have human thought. You know, an AI machine, computer, you know, can present many wonderful things, but they're only what has already been put into it by a real life human being. We know that anyway. Trouble is that we end up being seduced by our own thoughts, or our own we become seduced by our own thoughts and our own input by an AI machine. Ran out of space. I think I've run out of space.